Walk into any garden center on a Saturday morning and you will see the same thing. Rows and rows of flowers in full, glorious bloom. Gardenias so fragrant you can smell them from 3 aisles away. Orchids with blooms that look almost fake because they are too perfect. Lavender fields in miniature, purple and silver, and swaying gently under the sprinklers. Everything looks healthy. Everything looks easy. And that is exactly the problem. Because a shocking number of the most beautiful plants sold in garden centers are also some of the plants that beginners struggle with the most. Not because those beginners did anything wrong, not because they lack a green thumb, but because those plants were grown for weeks, sometimes months, under nearly perfect greenhouse conditions, and then shipped straight into homes and gardens that cannot offer anything close to that. Thousands of people walk out of garden centers every single week with a cart full of gorgeous plants that are quietly doomed from the moment they get home. Not doomed because the plant is bad, doomed because nobody told them what that plant actually needs to survive. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which flowers fool even well-meaning beginners, why they struggle so often, how to stop wasting your money on plants that were never going to work in your space, and which easier alternatives give you almost the same beauty without the heartbreak. If you enjoy learning the hidden truths behind successful gardening and want practical advice that helps you avoid costly mistakes, you are in the right place. This channel is all about helping everyday gardeners grow with confidence through smarter plant choices and simple gardening tips. If that sounds like your kind of content, kindly click the subscribe button, turn on the notification button, and become part of our growing gardening community. Before we get into today's list, I want to ask you something. What flower has given you the most trouble? Let us know in the comments, because your experience might help another gardener avoid the exact same mistake. Now let us talk about why this keeps happening in the first place. Why garden centers sell difficult plants. Garden centers are not lying to you. They are just selling beauty first, and beauty does not always come with an instruction manual. Most of the flowering plants on display were raised in commercial greenhouses with controlled humidity, filtered light, exact watering schedules, and fertilizer programs designed by horticulturists. Under those conditions, almost any plant looks incredible. That gardenia did not become fragrant and full because it is an easy plant. It became that way because someone gave it exactly what it wanted, every single day, for months. The moment that plant leaves the nursery and enters your living room or your backyard, all of those ideal conditions disappear. Your home has dry heating in the winter. Your yard has clay soil instead of the perfectly balanced potting mix the plant grew up in. Your watering schedule is based on your life, not the plant's biology. None of this makes these plants bad choices. It just means they require more experience, more attention, and more understanding of what is happening beneath the surface. Some of the most rewarding plants in gardening are also some of the most demanding. That is not a contradiction. That is just how it works. Here is the mistake almost every beginner makes, myself included when I started out. We buy with our eyes instead of our growing conditions. We see a flower we love and we picture where it will look nice. We do not think about how many hours of direct sun that spot actually gets. We do not think about our home's humidity level in January. We do not check whether our soil drains well or holds water like a sponge. We do not honestly ask ourselves how much maintenance we are actually willing to do on a weekly basis. Experienced gardeners are not lucky, and they do not have a magical green thumb. What they have is a habit. Before they buy anything, they ask whether the plant matches their light, their climate, their humidity, their soil, and their schedule. That single habit is responsible for more gardening success than any fertilizer or gadget you could buy. Keep that idea in mind, because we are about to look at 6 of the most beautiful, most tempting, and most misunderstood flowering plants sold today. For each one, we will cover why beginners fall for it, why it struggles, the early warning signs, whether it can be saved, who actually succeeds with it, and an easier alternative that gives you similar beauty with far less stress. Let us start with a plant whose fragrance alone has ended more gardening dreams than almost any other flower on this list: Gardenia. Picture this. You walk past a gardenia in full bloom, and that scent stops you in your tracks. It is sweet, it is rich, and it smells like something out of a perfume bottle. You buy it on the spot. Who wouldn't? Here is the problem. Gardenias are picky about nearly everything. They need consistently acidic soil, usually in the range of 5 to 6 on the pH scale, and most home soil and tap water push them toward alkaline instead. They also need high humidity, something most homes simply do not have, especially once the heater or air conditioner kicks on. Then there is watering. Gardenias hate being too dry, but they hate soggy roots even more, and the margin between the two is frustratingly small. The early warning signs show up fast. Leaves turn yellow while veins stay green, which usually points to a nutrient deficiency caused by the wrong soil pH. Flower buds form and then drop off before ever opening, often from inconsistent watering or a sudden change in temperature or light. If you see either of these, your gardenia is asking for help. Can it be saved? Often, yes. Switching to an acidic potting mix formulated for azaleas and camellias, watering with filtered or rainwater instead of hard tap water, and placing the plant somewhere with bright indirect light and steady humidity can bring a struggling gardenia back from the edge. Who actually succeeds with gardenias? Gardeners in warm, humid climates, particularly the southeastern United States, and anyone willing to monitor soil pH and watering consistency closely. If that sounds like more commitment than you want right now, that is completely okay. A beginner-friendly alternative with a similarly rich fragrance is the reblooming gardenia hybrid, paired with mandevilla for color. Or, if you want fragrance without the fuss, try a potted jasmine, which tolerates a wider range of conditions while still filling a room with scent. But the next plant fools even experienced gardeners because its problem does not show up in the soil, it shows up in the air around it. Maidenhair fern. Maidenhair ferns are stunning. Their fronds are almost impossibly delicate, thin black stems holding up soft fan-shaped leaves that seem to float in midair. They look like something from a rainforest, and honestly, that is exactly the point. Most people think this problem is caused by watering, but that is only part of the story. The real issue is humidity. Maidenhair ferns evolved in consistently moist, humid environments, and most homes, especially with central heating or air conditioning running, sit at a fraction of the humidity these ferns expect. The warning sign is unmistakable. Fronds turn crispy and brown, sometimes within days, when the air around them gets too dry. Watering more does not fix this, because the problem is not happening at the roots. It is happening in the air. Can it be saved? A severely crisped maidenhair fern can often regrow from its base if the roots are still healthy, but the damaged fronds themselves will not recover. The fix moving forward is raising humidity around the plant using a pebble tray, a small humidifier, or grouping it with other moisture-loving plants. Who succeeds with maidenhair ferns? Gardeners with bathrooms that get bright indirect light, greenhouse owners, or anyone who keeps a humidifier running nearby. It is also a favorite for people who enjoy the challenge of creating a little humid microclimate indoors. If that is not you right now, try a Boston fern instead. It has a similar lush, feathery look and tolerates average home humidity far better. Flower number 2 on our full list is probably the biggest surprise for people who assume it is only difficult because of watering. Orchids. Orchids intimidate almost everyone, and honestly, the reputation is a little unfair, and the plant itself is not as fragile as people think. The problem is that almost everything people believe about orchid care turns out to be a myth. The biggest myth is that orchids like to sit in a cup of water or ice cubes. In reality, most popular orchids, like the common moth orchid, grow naturally attached to tree bark in the wild, with roots exposed to air. Sitting in standing water suffocates those roots and leads directly to root rot. Another common mistake is light. Orchids need bright, indirect light, not the dim corner of a hallway. Without enough light, the plant survives but rarely blooms again, which is why so many people think their orchid died when it is actually just waiting for better conditions. Warning signs to watch for include roots that look black, mushy, or hollow instead of firm and silvery green, and leaves that turn yellow and soft rather than staying leathery. Both point to overwatering or poor drainage. Can it be saved? Yes, more often than people expect. Repotting into a chunky orchid bark mix instead of regular potting soil, watering only when the roots look silvery and dry, and moving the plant to a bright east or south-facing window can bring a struggling orchid back to blooming health within a season. Experienced growers succeed with orchids because they stop treating them like ordinary houseplants and start treating them like the tree-dwelling plants they actually are in nature. Once that mental shift happens, orchids become far more forgiving than their reputation suggests. If you want flowering color without learning orchid-specific care, an African violet or a peace lily offers reliable blooms with much more forgiving watering habits. Now let us talk about a plant that most people assume is nearly impossible to kill, and yet ends up in more compost bins than almost anything else on this list. Lavender. Lavender has a reputation as an easy, low-maintenance plant, and in the right conditions, it absolutely is. But here is the twist beginners rarely see coming. Lavender's biggest enemy is kindness. Specifically, too much water and too much rich soil. Lavender comes from the rocky, sun-scorched hillsides of the Mediterranean. It evolved to survive drought, poor soil, and intense heat. When beginners plant it in rich garden soil and water it on the same schedule as their other flowers, they are essentially drowning a desert plant. The warning signs are usually blackened, mushy stems near the base of the plant, and a general grayish, wilted look even though the soil is clearly wet. This is root rot, and once it sets in severely, it is very difficult to reverse. Can it be saved? If caught early, yes. Cutting back watering completely, improving drainage by adding sand or gravel to the soil, and moving potted lavender to a spot with at least 6 hours of direct sun can often save a struggling plant before root rot becomes fatal. Lavender thrives for gardeners in dry, sunny climates, or anyone growing it in well-draining, slightly poor soil with minimal watering once established. Ironically, the gardeners who succeed with lavender are often the ones who almost neglect it. If your climate is humid or your soil holds water, try rosemary or Russian sage instead. Both offer a similar silvery, fragrant look and tolerate a wider range of moisture levels. Next up is a plant that exploded in popularity because of social media, and unfortunately, that popularity rarely comes with an honest warning label. Calatheas. Calatheas are stunning. Their leaves look painted, with bold stripes, deep purples, and patterns that genuinely look too perfect to be real. They became social media darlings almost overnight, and thousands of beginners bought their first Calathea because it looked incredible in a photo. Here is what those photos rarely show. Calatheas are notoriously sensitive to tap water. Minerals like fluoride and chlorine, which most tap water contains, cause brown, crispy leaf edges over time. They also demand high humidity and are famous for dramatic leaf curling the moment conditions are not quite right. The warning signs are easy to spot once you know what to look for. Leaves curling inward like a rolled-up scroll usually means the humidity is too low or the plant needs water. Brown, crispy edges typically point to tap water sensitivity or dry air. Can it be saved? Usually. Switching to filtered or distilled water, raising humidity with a pebble tray or humidifier, and keeping the plant out of direct sun and drafts will often stop the decline and encourage new, healthy growth. Calatheas succeed with gardeners who enjoy fussing over their plants a little, checking on them regularly, and who do not mind adjusting watering type and humidity to keep them happy. For plant lovers who enjoy that kind of relationship with a plant, Calatheas are incredibly rewarding. If you love the bold, patterned look but want something more forgiving, try a peperomia or a pothos with variegated leaves. Both offer striking foliage without the sensitivity. Our final flower on this list might be the single most purchased and most quickly killed statement plant in America over the last decade. Fiddle leaf fig. You have seen it in every home design magazine and every stylish living room on social media. The fiddle leaf fig, with its huge, glossy, violin-shaped leaves, has become the plant equivalent of a statement piece of furniture. Everyone wants one standing in the corner of their living room. Unfortunately, fiddle leaf figs are famously particular. They dislike being moved, they dislike sudden temperature swings, and they are extremely sensitive to both overwatering and underwatering, often reacting the exact same way to both, which confuses even attentive plant owners. The warning sign almost everyone experiences is leaf drop, sometimes several leaves at once, often after the plant has been moved to a new spot or the seasons have changed. Brown spots on leaves can indicate either too much water or too little, which is exactly why this plant frustrates so many beginners. Can it be saved? In most cases, yes, as long as the roots are still healthy. The fix usually involves settling the plant into one consistent bright spot, away from drafts and heating vents, and switching to a consistent watering schedule based on checking the soil moisture rather than the calendar. Experienced growers succeed with fiddle leaf figs because they stop moving the plant around and stop reacting to every dropped leaf with a change in care. Consistency, more than any specific trick, is what these plants respond to. If you want that same bold architectural look without the drama, try a rubber plant or a snake plant. Both offer striking presence with far more tolerance for an imperfect routine. Now that we have gone through all 6 plants, let us talk about how to avoid this problem entirely before you even get to the checkout line. How to choose beginner-friendly plants. The good news is that almost every plant sold at a garden center comes with a plant tag, and that little tag holds most of the information you need to make a smart decision before you ever get it home. Start with sun requirements. Full sun generally means at least 6 hours of direct light a day. Partial shade means filtered or a few hours of direct sun. If your space does not match what the tag says, that mismatch alone can doom an otherwise healthy plant. Next, look at watering frequency. Some tags will say drought tolerant, while others will say keep soil consistently moist. Be honest with yourself about how often you will realistically water, not how often you intend to in a perfect world. Check humidity needs, especially for houseplants. If a tag or description mentions high humidity and you live somewhere dry, or you run heating and air conditioning constantly, that plant will need extra help to thrive indoors. Look up your USDA hardiness zone before buying anything meant for outdoor planting. A plant rated for zones 8 through 10 will likely struggle or fail entirely if you live in zone 5, no matter how well you care for it. Finally, consider maintenance level and growth habit. Some plants need regular pruning, repotting, or feeding schedules to stay healthy, while others are genuinely happy to be left alone. Matching that maintenance level to your actual lifestyle, not your aspirational lifestyle, makes an enormous difference in long-term success. Before you put any flowering plant in your cart, run through these 5 questions in your head. Does my climate match this plant's needs? Can I realistically provide enough sunlight in the spot I have in mind? How often will I actually water this? Based on my real schedule, not my ideal one. Is this plant considered beginner-friendly, or does it require specific conditions I do not currently have? Can I meet its humidity needs without buying extra equipment I am not willing to maintain? If you can answer yes to most of these, you are in great shape. If you are answering no to several, that does not mean skip the plant entirely. It just means go in with your eyes open and maybe start with something easier while you build confidence. Here is the truth behind everything we covered today. None of these 6 plants are bad plants. Gardenias, maidenhair ferns, orchids, lavender, calatheas, and fiddle leaf figs are all beautiful and all worth growing for the right person in the right conditions. The best gardeners are not the ones with a magical green thumb. They are simply the ones who understand what each plant actually needs and who choose plants that match their specific home, climate, and lifestyle instead of chasing whatever looks prettiest on the shelf. The best gardeners do not buy every beautiful plant they see. They choose the plants they can actually help thrive. If this video saved you from a costly mistake or explained why a plant you already own has been struggling, kindly give us a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and drop a comment. And remember, there are also plants that almost anyone can grow successfully, even if you have killed every plant you have ever owned. We will explore those in the next video.